What's going on, everybody? Giant Opinion Sports. So I'm excited to bring a new series to my channel after every season. I think I'm going to make a video on just the higher profile players that have expiring contracts. Now, this is going to be a really hard off season to ask questions about these guys because we don't even have a head coach at the moment. We don't know the incoming scheme. But I'd be shocked if the Giants don't run some form of the 3-4. It's really how the roster is built. And we did play sub 4-3 throughout the season, but it really was only used in situations to stop the run. So I'll be going off just banking on like a hybrid defense coming up this next year, because pretty much all teams run a hybrid of some kind nowadays. And honestly, I don't think scheme is a huge issue when it comes to Lorenzo. I think Lorenzo could play in a 4-3 at the weak side linebacker, no problem. He's surprisingly good in coverage. I think he'd be better in that role than Matthias Kiwanuka was, which we saw in the early mid-2000s. We saw him make the switch from defensive end to outside linebacker. That being said, though, I personally like his role on this team that we saw basically his whole career here. He's decent at setting an edge in the run game, and, he can pass rush a little bit. Now, I had high hopes when we drafted Lorenzo. He was a third-round pick, I believe. Now, I never expected him to be a superstar, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I expected more from him. We've seen flashes from him, moments, but it just seems like he's never really put it all together, and it really didn't help that he tore his Achilles last season in week 5, so pretty early in the year too. We were also hearing hype from the coaching staff that he was turning a corner. We even heard a little bit of the beginning of this season, which made the injury so much worse. So I made a point this offseason to just lower my expectations of Lorenzo. Achilles injuries it's a 2-year process. It can really zap your speed. I thought going down the stretch, you really saw a different player. And that's one of the things that keeps me hopeful for Lorenzo. He's only 26 years old. It ain't like he had that injury when he was on the back end of his career. So he's plenty young to overcome this. And athletically, he's gifted. He's a long, tall guy. He's got long strides. He ran a 4.5, 4.6 through the draft combine stuff and all that. So he's got great speed for an edge rusher. And unfortunately, he doesn't have the best burst off the line. I think that's been his biggest issue. He doesn't have the most impressive pass rushing moves. And maybe the second biggest thing besides burst is he's pretty stiff. He's not the bendiest guy. I'm not saying you don't have no bend, but because of them things, I think he's at tops. If he was to hit his ceiling and be consistent, you might get 7 to 8 sacks a year out of the guy. But we haven't even seen that. I'm talking absolute ceiling. I don't see any team giving him a huge contract. At this point, best thing Lorenzo can do for himself is play on a 1-year prove-it deal next season. Kind of like we saw Marcus Golden when he came over from Arizona. And I think he'll get a similar deal as Marcus Golden. I think Marcus Golden got a $3.75 million. He ended up getting $4.75 million because he hit an incentive. It was an extra $1 million for 10 plus sacks. So that's what I think he'll get. He'll fetch right around that $4 or $5 million. Now the Giants are in a tough spot with the cap, but a $5 million deal can really turn into like $1 million, a little bit over on the cap. You could turn most of it into a signing bonus. You can throw in incentives, like I was just talking about, to lure him back. Now, we are probably going to draft an edge rusher, and this is where everything gets a little murky. I'm pretty sure in the first 3 rounds, we're going to draft an edge rusher, and I wouldn't be shocked if with our first pick of the draft would go that route. Thibodeau or Hutchinson slides down. But I will say this, it's rare to see a rookie edge rusher come in and just take over right from the start for an entire season. So if Lorenzo comes back, I think there'll be plenty of playing time for him here next season. And honestly, it could be a perfect situation for both sides for one more season. I don't really see a long-term path here for Lorenzo because we saw Quincy Roche emerge. He's going to be here real cheap for the next few years. We drafted Ellerson Smith last year in the 4th round, I believe, so he's not going anywhere unless he completely flunks out of the NFL. And Aziz has that right side locked down right now. So if Lorenzo does come back on a prove-it deal, it's probably going to be his last hurrah. So most of my criteria is filled with Lorenzo Carter. He's not a bum. He's still got some unlocked potential. He's only 26 years old. And the contract will really not affect the cap a whole lot if he's brought back. So I say sign him with this one. There's no reason to let him just walk away. If he does walk away, not a huge deal. It's not the end of the world, but it makes sense to me bringing him back. Obviously, it is contingent on the next coach and system, but Lorenzo might want to re-sign to be in a familiar situation. First of all, he's already on top of the depth tier-wise for the right side, and I think for him that would be a whole lot easier than to go somewhere he's never been, complete unknown situation, and then on top of that, he's not quite sure where he is in the depth chart. So, Joe Shane, make it happen. Also, I stole the highlights from Fireside Giants, so I want to shout them out. Go check them out. They have a quality channel. It is ridiculously hard to find Lorenzo Carter highlights. But most importantly, I want to know what you guys think. Should the Giants sign or walk away from Lorenzo Carter? Throughout the next week, I'll have a bunch more of these. We got quite a few players that had expiring deals, so I won't waste my time with an Evan Ingram video unless you guys call for it and just want to hear me basically go on a 5-minute long rant. But I think I'll avoid that whole topic. That's it for me. Like the video to help me grow. If you're new and you're a Giants fan, subscribe. What the hell are you waiting for? That's it. Peace.